We all, of course, know how absolutely broken Lady Alexandra is, but in order to get her, we have to farm a crap ton of arenas. So I've been doing kind of videos as the arenas rotate, showing you guys my teams, showcasing them for single target and anti-air and all those sorts of good things, as well as talking through some of the popular heroes, as well as potential team compositions you can use. So that being said, today we are on to the AOE DPS Arena. I'm going to be showcasing my team, you know, all the stuff I just mentioned, talking through really some of the most popular options that people are using these days, so you can get a good idea of how you can conquer this content and work your way towards Lady Alexandra. So let's go ahead and hop straight into it. So first of all, for the popular heroes, it's going to be pretty much the same across the board. The only exception being if you really get down into like lower platinum or certainly the gold levels, you're going to see some additional options, right? So we can really start to see like the hat suits are an option when you're in gold. If you have Zarus, he's going to be fantastic. Anora, those sorts of things are really viable, right? So even like a Beelzebub, Vierna, those sorts of heroes, if you're just in gold level, perfectly fine, right? So this particular video may not be the most beneficial for you if you're trying to push Platinum or Overlord, because I won't be talking about those options. As you can see, though, once we get into Platinum, stuff like Zarus falls way further down, Hatsuit way further down, etc., right? Because the problem with Zarus, he's really good for bursting down the first like 1 to 2 waves on his own, which can give you some time to get like cost back and whatnot, but after the first 2 waves he really can't do a whole lot because his summons just weaken out a lot. I think mine is like A4 or A5 at this point, and I can't really get too far using him inside the AOE DPS Arena. So we're really looking at what people are using inside the Overlord and the Apex Overlord to try and get our team compositions going. Now, the thing to consider here as well is you'll see, like, you know, simply Ingrid, Valara, Diao-Chan, Praetus, those sorts of things are the core backbones of most teams. In fact, these top 5 heroes here are actually probably the best team that you can make, but Awakenings are also crucial as well. So Valara, she has insane Awakenings, right? She's obviously one of the best AoE DPS units currently in the game. And then Diao-Chan basically needs to be A1 as well. So for the AoE section, there's also some newer additions to the game, right? So Nurja is a fantastic option that you can use if you're just looking to do big numbers. He is part of the Watcher faction as well, so you can easily use him with an Ingrid as a Lord, since she is a Watcher Lord, right? And then you can get some other decent options in there as well. We have somebody like an Eris who's also part of the Watchers, though he is a 22 cost unit, which is absolutely insane. A lot of players also use somebody like a Cyrene to be placed down and get early cost regen as well, so that you can get like your Ingrids out a little bit faster. And then we are actually seeing the rise of Kagiri inside the AoE DPS Arena. And the reasons for that is the same kind of reason that you would see him in a single target. You know, you have a lot of DPS potential on him, though he does need to be awakened, and the timings are really important as well. But what's really cool is he has good survivability when he's doing his parry mechanics, but the other thing to consider is that if you don't have the ability to heal him or have some sort of prevent death mechanic on him with like a Carnelian or a Lily or something like that, it's very possible that the bursts when the enemies die at these ranks of arena are really going to mess you up. So let's go ahead and just take a look at the leaderboard as well, right? So we'll go kind of to the bottom. I think that's where the most achievable teams will be, and we'll just kind of look at some of the AoE arena teams that people are using inside the top 300. Now, I'm not sure why the bottom guys always have like no team information available, but as you can see, here's like a pretty normal team composition that we'll see, which is a Praetus, Valara, Ingrid, Diao-Chan, and Eloin, which pretty much exactly mirrors what you would see inside like the anti-air DPS as well. And then you actually get like a lot of similar teams inside the single target as well, oddly enough, so you still sometimes see like your Praetuses and stuff like that being used there. But this is essentially the meta right now. If you don't have some of these heroes, we're going to talk about potential substitutions as well. So let's go ahead here and let's just kind of hop straight into it. So this is the particular team that I use. Again, we're going to be talking about substitutions, so if you don't have these options, don't click off just yet. We're going to go over it. So I have Praetus, I have Ingrid, I have Valara, Diao-Chan, and Nerissa, actually. So The only awakenings I have are going to be Praetus and Diao Chan, who are both A1. Everybody else is A0. Ingrid, obviously we know what she does, big AoE DPS. Praetus is here as a lord for both her and Ingrid, Valara, right? And then he also has the Praetus button, which can massively boost their damage as well. Nerissa is here for her, mainly for her heals, right? So I needed some sort of a healer that would give me big AoE potential heals. Not AoE, sorry, but like a big area that they can heal in, essentially. So we're looking like the Vortex and the Hollow ranges, those sorts of things. So she's fantastic for that. She does also have the AoE damage decrease as well, which is very nice, to try and make sure that, you know, I don't get blown up so easily by the enemies that are coming through and potentially blowing up next to the Valara, because she's obviously not very tanky. Diao Chan is kind of a staple of any team. I've said this before inside my AoE, or inside my arena guides. You need good heroes, right? Like, this is as late game of content as it can possibly be, because certainly if you're trying to get into Overlord, or even, you know, higher end Platinum 3, you're going against other players who have spent thousands and thousands, probably hundreds of thousands of energy farming, you know, Gear Raid 1, Gear Raid 3, the gear dungeons, everything like that. So that's a big consideration. A lot of these guys are also beating up Abyss 1 inside, you know, Guild Boss 1. They've been hitting Guild Boss 2 for, you know, as long as their accounts have been active. So that's a big consideration, right? Like, you're going to have good heroes you're going against. You're either going to need Awakenings or Crazy Gear to really contend with this, and you are going to need good heroes as well. So realistically, at the end of the day, you have to have decent expectations with what your account can do. My account, as I always say, it is, you know, 100% free to play, apart from buying the Lust skin. So that doesn't give me any sort of a competitive advantage whatsoever. So any of the gear, heroes, builds, all that is technically attainable, though I will certainly say I've been quite lucky. But all that being said, we do have a Diao Chan banner coming up here, confirmed within the next week or so. So if you don't have her, go ahead and pop those 200 shards. You definitely will not regret it. If you already have her, but you don't have her awakened, there was like a fly on my microphone there. If you don't have her and you don't have her awakened, go ahead and get another copy of her and get her A1. It is fantastic, right? So some other options if this particular team does not tickle your fancy. There is actually the potential to run a Chaos team. There's a lot of really good AoE DPS inside the Chaos faction, and your team is going, and just kind of the one caveat with this is you can run a chaotic team as long as you have a Valderon Lord. So I have Gon as my Lord, which means that essentially I can't run this, unfortunately, but if you had a Valderon that you could place in here instead, that would be perfect. And you'd be running something like an Ardea, a Lubu, and then maybe a Carnelian combined with a Diao Chan, right? And this would be a very decent team for you. So the Carnelian's going to keep everybody alive, even when they have low HP. You have really good range on both the Ardea and the Lubu, so you can get very, very good damage out at distance. And then obviously you'd have the Valderon doing absolutely insane damage when they get close to him as well. It is a very viable team composition, though it's certainly not as good as some other teams that you may see on here. Valderon certainly doesn't really get used as much inside the AoE DPS. It's very hard to keep any sort of like a strictly chaotic team alive, because they all have the tendency to damage themselves so much. So I probably wouldn't recommend that particular team. What you might want to do instead is some sort of a hybrid, right? So I don't have Draylin, but if you had Draylin, she'd be huge for this as well. So you could run like an Ingrid, a Valara, Diao Chan, and then your choice of healer, so whether it be a Nerissa, a Pharisee, Eluin, whatever it might be, and then put in like a Draylin as well, and you're essentially not gonna, you know, leak in this team ever, so it takes away that side of RNG. Leaking, of course, meaning, you know, when enemies get by you. So let's just say Numera is Draylin. You could run a team like this. As you can see from the hero rankings, especially if we look at like Apex Overlord, Draylin is like top 5 most used heroes. She is absolutely insane for this, and she can really help to enable certain team compositions. Another option actually is the Cultist faction. So there's definitely some decent Cultist team comps out there. You can run it either with a Lord or without a Lord, kind of dealer's choice, but you have some very, very good options here. So Malvira for a tank is very good, because with her ultimate she can essentially reach out pull everybody into a certain little kind of like kill box. And then if you have somebody like obviously a Vierna who can do big damage as well as the execution ability inside that kill box, it's going to help you out a ton. In terms of the lords, there's some options, right? So you could easily run either a Demi or the other lord who I'm blanking on at the moment, apparently, even though I have her, and I know I have her, but right here. So I forgot her name, Morgane. Morgane is a pretty good option as well, though I'll be honest, like cultist team compositions are definitely not as prominent as they once were. But if you were to make a team like this, you'd probably want to run your choice of the lords. You can run a Magda, who has obviously the pushback option as well. You can bring in a Beelzebub, who's going to do, you know, a little bit of control as well as some inspiration. You can run a Nora, who has burst damage as well as working with a summon. And then if you have a Ymmerit, you can run him in here as well. If you don't have a Ymmerit, you could run a Malvira. If you don't have her for some reason, you could also run like a Vierna and then just kind of cycle her and a Nora whenever, you know, you need to. If you have the Nora exclusive artifact where she gets more rage when she kills people, that'll help out a ton. The one thing to consider, though, is that you do need some sort of a unit you can place down quickly. All of these are fairly high cost, so at the end of the day, you're probably going to be running either like a Cyrene or potentially a Zarus for the first couple of rounds, in which case you don't have an inspiration like a Diao-Chan or anything like that. So simply put, really the meta that we're looking at these days for the AOE Arena is going to consist of the Arbiters faction. Arbiters is kind of where it's at. You can also do the Watchers as well. So those are kind of the two factions you're looking at. When you're looking at the Watchers specifically, if you're looking for some sort of a team composition, obviously Ingrid is going to be best in slot lord for this faction. You could also use Alea. She has very good, you know, rage regen mechanics for your team. Ain as well as Barut are absolutely useless when it comes to the AOE Arena, so I wouldn't recommend running them. But if you have Leia or if you have Ingrid, you could potentially get away with a Watcher team composition. There's certainly some decent options here. So Callista is one of my favorites, right? Callista has some pushback. She has decent damage. Everybody got her for free if you've been playing long enough. Like we mentioned, Eris is another decent option. You have Constance for a potential inspiration as well as a tank unit. You have Talon, who can be absolutely fantastic as a tank, especially if you build her out in an Ichor Chalice. She's bringing self-sustain, which is huge. Kagiri can do massive AoE damage for you. You obviously have Diao-Chan here as well. If you have Nurja, he's a fantastic option to run here. And then, you know, again, an Eris would probably be best placed with him. So you could have like either an Eris or a Regalis or like a Constance in front kind of tanking. Have Nurja right behind them with his ultimate, especially once he has it up. He has very good range on that. And then you could have, like, you know, say for example, let's just say we're bringing a Constance, right? So this would be kind of the core of your team, is the Ingrid combined with the Nurja for the DPS. Constance really just enabling some inspiration. And then it's kind of a pick your poison for the remaining slots. So you could bring in a Cyrene to get everybody else placed out quicker. That's probably what I would recommend. So this is what you'd be looking at for like a team right here. You know, if you have Kagiri, you could easily place him as well, though it's going to be hard to place down a 17 cost unit early enough to really have impact. So you kind of have to balance it, because you can have a Kagiri or like a Constance in there, right? But you also need some healing, which Diao-Chan in her inspiration mode generally doesn't bring enough to heal. So then you may be ending up switching out for like a Eunomia or something like that, which, I mean, well, kind of is what it is. But this is a fairly decent team composition right here that I'd recommend. Right before I end the video, I'm also going to go through and kind of show you my particular team composition. I'll show you the builds for everybody as well. So we got 23k attack on the Praetus, crit rate, crit damage, and attack speed are as so. Not really going to get too in-depth about this. I have guides for most of these heroes on my channel. So if you're curious about that, you can go ahead and take a look at my particular guide. I don't think I have an Ingrid guide quite yet, but I do have a Valara guide out there. I have a... oh, I don't think I have a Diao-Chan or a Nerissa guide out there quite yet, but essentially, obviously, with Diao-Chan, you're just looking for attack. Nothing else matters. Attack and enough HP to survive, of course. And then Nerissa has inspiration on her, invigoration rather, decent attack speed, all her healing effect, that sort of good stuff. We'll go ahead And we'll fight this particular team here. Obviously, there's a bit of a BP difference. I didn't show you the artifacts or anything like that, but, I mean, it kind of is what it is. If you just look at the Fastidious website, or if you hop into my Discord, which is linked down below, I can give you a bit more information in depth about those builds. With this particular team, basically what it revolves around is the first 1 to 3 rounds are going to be cleared by Valara solo. Once that's happened, you have a couple of different options. So depending on your BP that you're fighting, second round you usually don't have to pop her ultimate with the build I have. Third round I like to pop the ultimate, as you can see, and make sure that we don't get any sort of leaking against really any BP. Then I'm saving up to 25 cost for the Ingrid. It's also nice because Valara is regenerating her rage so consistently when there's no enemies left on the field. As you can see, we kind of put the enemy down pretty quickly. Now, if you're fighting a team that has really low BP, you can probably place your Praetus next, and he'll go right here where my mouse is. So like right here in this square, right? If you're fighting somebody that has a little bit higher BP and you're worried about survivability and they might get close enough to you and blow up and kill you, then you're probably going to want to place your Nerissa first so that she can keep everybody alive, also start building up her stacks, all that sort of good stuff. But we get everybody out in pretty quick succession anyways. And the only thing to be aware of with this team, with this placement and timing, is that if you're going against enemies that have a BP of around 500,000 or higher, I've noticed that it does leak a little bit kind of later on. So once we get to like the end of round 7, start of round 8, end of round 8, in that area, it does leak pretty hard. But you can really see from like my ultimate timings and everything like that, we are pretty rock solid when it comes to like the middle to end of these rounds. With round 9, certainly, we almost always handle it pretty efficiently because both Praetus and Valara are going to have their ultimates up, and then obviously Ingrid has her Praetus button, which is really enabling her there as well. So as you can see, we're just getting through them with absolutely no issue. The big slap comes in there from Ingrid at the end, and then even if we don't take them all the way down to 0%, usually we've done enough damage to their core that we are able to win it without issue. And then if you're curious about the damage breakdown, just to see how absolutely crazy everybody is, you can also see here I'm in like the top 2/3 or top 75% of Platinum 3. But the damage breakdown is as follows, right? So basically all the damage is coming from Valara and Ingrid. Everybody else is here just to kind of enable that. So Praetus is only doing 16 million, all things considered, which, I mean, you could replace him with probably... you know, an epic, and he's going to do similar damage. The only thing to consider is that Praetus is obviously bringing in his button, which is enabling both Valara and Ingrid to do significantly more damage. Now, when you're going against teams like this with like 540,000 BP, it's definitely a little bit more questionable. As you can see, they have a lot of awakenings across the team, so there's a very good chance that these guys would beat me, especially if I tried to fight it on auto. But that's essentially the core of the team. That's how it works. That's how you can build it if you're trying to copy it. And I hope this guide was useful for everybody to let you know kind of, you know, what teams you can use. As I mentioned, we have Valderon teams, and there is actually one right here. So this guy is pretty high ranked. Obviously, he's around 500,000 BP. He is inside Overlord as well. And he is using a Valderon team, so that's something to consider there too. So Valderon teams do still get usage, just not as much as they once did. But like I mentioned, go ahead and make sure to hop into the Discord if you want to brag, if you have questions, if you want to share builds, if you're curious about something, or, you know, if I missed something, feel free to hop in there and let me know. Thank you guys all so much for watching. I'll see you next time.